We drive the listeners crazy because we love them.
I do never cease being surprised by how bad your spelling is behind the scenes. It seems like it's not your strongest suit.
I would say that spelling is perhaps my weakest suit. Way better at socializing at big parties. Probably way better at skydiving than I am at spelling. My method of spelling words is just type quickly, right? Just type quickly whatever comes into your head first.
All right.
What I'm about to say, of course, as a former teacher, I would never endorse that students do what I'm about to say that I did when I was a student. But when I was back in high school and middle school, I would cheat the hell out of spelling tests.
How would you cheat?
One of the years, I had a homeroom class that then rolled over into an English class. And so I would be able to just write very lightly in pencil some of the spelling words that I knew were going to be on the test, or the likely spelling words that were going to be on the test. Or I'd conceal them somewhere else. I think most industrious kids know if you really put your mind to it, it's not super hard to cheat if you're not in a standardized test environment and there's any kind of regularity to it. But here's the thing. The reason I felt no guilt about cheating is because I could only cheat my way to a 50% score, right? If I wasn't cheating, I would get a 20% score on the spelling. It would have been atrocious. But if I had cheated my way into oh wow, I got an 80% this week, it would be way too obvious, right? I would have been caught for cheating immediately because it would be so obvious that there's no way this kid actually did it. So I felt like I cheated myself into a less bad failing grade to try to not entirely pull down my grade average for the class on a whole. So that was my history with spelling in school.
Normally, between you and I, there is a one-way flow of pictures of cute puppies. I often send you pictures of Audrey and Lulu in action and stuff like that. But everything has changed. You have been sending me videos and pictures of you playing with a super, super cute dog. What is going on? Tell people what is happening in your world.
What is happening in my world is not what the listeners are probably imagining. I have not gotten a dog. The Gray family has no intention to get a dog.
Yet.
But no. We make decisions. Not promises for our future selves, but for the moment we've decided that we're not going to get a dog. But we talked our way into dog sitting our neighbor's new puppy. I have been like a stay-at-home doggy dad for the past week, taking care of a little bulldog breed puppy who is very cute. And I feel like someone who has a baby and then can't help but just send photos of the baby to everyone in the world. I think I have sent photos and videos of this little dog to lots of people. Lots of people on social boundaries. It's should I really be sending this person a picture of the dog? But the dog is so cute. Why I can't not send this photograph. So there's been an exodus of dog photos and videos from my phone to many other people.
So I can see how your wife would get herself into dog sitting. I cannot see how you would have agreed to this. It seems like something you wouldn't do. You're a nice guy and stuff, but I can't see you agreeing to dog sit like someone else's dog.
Okay, so I have to ask you this because when I have sent out these pictures to people, I have gotten universal feedback, which is exactly what you're expressing, which is, I don't understand why or how you've agreed to this. And to me, I feel like my only response is, what do you mean? Why would someone agree to this? I can barely understand. What do you think is the reason that I wouldn't do this?
Well, it's such an encroachment upon your time and your space for something that is not yours. And I know you've been involved. It's not just you've just been keeping an eye on it. You've been training it, and, trying to make it a better dog, a better puppy.
It's very important.
And it sounds like it's been, and I know it's encroached on your ability to do other things in your normal course of your day. You've made it sound like it's, become a real a big thing in your life for whatever period you're doing this for. And that just seems like something that you would be reluctant to agree to. You know, you're so, organised and set in your ways and like to organise your time. And you're quite like a self-contained unit.
This is true.
Like, you don't seem like someone who does lots and lots of things for the benefit of other people. And yet this dog sitting thing goes against that. And I get you get like, some fun times and cuteness out of it, but I wouldn't have thought that would have been enough to have overcome all your other traits.
I guess I could see that. On the other hand, puppies are great.
Yeah.
My parents mostly let it, but I helped out with the training of Lucy, my parents' dog, when she was a little puppy, and that was the first time I ever had any experience doing formal dog training. And so, like, I found that a really interesting experience, and as I've mentioned many times on the podcast, like a helpful experience.
And looking back now, you do talk about that Cesar Milano show a lot, don't you? And like, you have got a bit of an interest in dog training now I think about it.
Yeah, like actually, we can revisit that in a moment. But so like this to me is now like another little step up of the ratchet, where it's like, oh, now there's a dog that I have total responsibility for huge portions of the day. And so that's a very different level of behavior training. And I personally just find that very interesting. But I will say, you are 100% right when you talk about an encroachment into my life, because in the main room of our house, the room where we have the kitchen and like a couch and space to watch TV, the main living area of the house, 40% of that floor space is now taken up by a doggy pen that we got for this dog that I'm dog sitting, which contains within it a doggy bed and many doggy toys. We also got a harness for the little dog and a leash. We've purchased many things for this pupper. So
You've purchased them.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, yeah.
How big a commitment is this? Are you just doing something temporarily while they went to like Europe for a week? Or is this while they go to their job every day? You've said, I will care for your dog during the day while you do your normal job every day of your life.
So basically I'm taking care of the dog during the day. This is what we've signed up for. Is the puppy is very, very young. He's about 10 weeks old now.
Give it a name. What's its name?
Oh, I mean, for the privacy's sake for the dog, I don't want to give his name.
That's true. Safety, Gray. Safety.
Yeah. I'm going to call him Mr. Chompers because he chomps on absolutely everything. And that is the number one behavior that we're working on right now, is that Mr. Chompers has to get less chompy.
Is Mr. Chompers chomping your personal possessions?
No. He's very good about that, actually. Mr. Chompers' favorite thing to chomp are hands.
I would count your hands as your personal possessions, but I see what you mean.
No, they're just part of the meat sack that I live in, Brady. Right? They're personal possessions. That's a very different thing. But yeah, so Mr. Chompers, we're doing lots of redirection. Like you chew on toys. And it's great to see him learn over time, like, and change his behavior. Like, I find that very rewarding. I was like the most proud father in the world the very first day when he went on his own and picked up one of his chew toys instead of having to be directed towards the chew toy. Like, this is very, very young puppy behavior where they're just, it's very hard to train them at this stage. But no, I'm taking care of him during the day. And I will say that I suspect, right, that we were like angels from heaven descended upon these neighbors of ours. With their dog, because they had taken a bunch of time off work to be around Mr. Chompers, and then they had to go back to work, and they were trying to arrange like some things with their other family and like daycare situation and like a whole bunch of other stuff. And then we showed up like, hey, I work from home. I can look after Mr. Chompers. Right? And it's like, and I'm more than happy, nay, delighted to help out with the training while he's a little puppy for a while. So,
but how do you get out of this now? Like, at what point do you say, okay, I'm not having your dog anymore? Have you put any kind of expiration date on this agreement, or?
Yeah, the implied expiration date is just when he's old enough to actually be able to be left alone for some period of time. Like he's too young as a puppy to be on his own all day. So like they have to do something with him. And so this way, like he doesn't have to go, into like a doggy daycare facility for the day. Yeah. I can just go pick him up, bring him to my place, drop him off, and then have this little puppy be essentially an all-consuming focus of my life for the entire day. It's exhausting. It's genuinely exhausting.
Is there any concern you're going to get into one of these like cliched sort of surrogate mother type positions when they say, okay, it's time for us to have our dog back, and you're going to be like, your dog? I'm the one who's brought it up and taught it chew toys and like.
No. But see, this is the thing that nobody understands, right? This is the best way to have a dog, is the ability to give him back at the end of the day, or like this weekend, right? We don't have Mr. Chompers this weekend because he is with his actual parents. And it's like, oh wow, my wife and I now have like, look at all of this space we have. We can collapse the whole dog pen situation. We can put it off to the side. We can just relax. It's great. Like, I feel like this is what Brady, grandparents are always talking about, right? When they're like, oh, grandkids are better than real kids because you get to give the grandchildren back, but you also get to spend some time with the grandkids.
But do you find yourself sitting around ever thinking, oh, I wish Mr. Chompers was here?
We do wonder what Mr. Chompers is up to, right?
Yeah.
I wonder what he's doing right now. We've definitely reviewed Mr. Chompers' videos that we've taken and photographs because, Brady, at this age, they grow up so fast. Like, he's legitimately bigger every day. And now that I will not have seen him for a long weekend, when I see Mr. Chompers tomorrow, he's gonna be so much bigger already. You have to cherish the time that you have with them when they're young.
Are you dealing with poo and wee?
Oh yeah. We have
in the house?
Yeah, well, we're doing piddle pads. Like, he's not potty trained yet. So we're doing the piddle pads on the floor for now. So we have that laid out. A little dog goes through mountains of piddle pads. So yeah, that's the situation.
Have you had to pick up a poo yet?
Yeah, I've picked up poo. That's what you do with dogs.
Oh man, I will pay you £50 for a video of you picking up a poo.
Why?
I don't know. I just can't imagine you doing it.
We bought one of those little dog poo bag dispensers in the shape of a bone, right? So you can pull out a little dog poo bag.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? The kind you keep in your pocket. Yeah. We've just got one of those. I take Mr. Chompers out for walks. We're trying to train him to go to the bathroom outside. And so, yeah, you pick up poo. That's what you do with little dogs. You have to change.
We have to organise a Mr. Chompers Audrey play date.
Oh, yeah? Does she do well with other dogs?
Depends on the dog.
Mm.
She's quite territorial, but away from home, she's pretty friendly with all dogs. In her park, only certain dogs are allowed.
Right, of course. I forget that Audrey does own that park. It is hers.
She does, so... But away from home, she's pretty cool with all dogs. And she gets used to any dog within about a minute.
Well, socializing is an important part of puppy life.
But this has absolutely not moved your own personal needle for getting a dog at some point.
Oh, I can see at some point in the future we get a dog. I don't see it in the near future for a whole variety of reasons. And again, everybody says to me, they're like, you've adopted somebody else's dog essentially during the day. Like, you're gonna have a dog within weeks. And my view on this is the exact opposite. We are in fact satiating our doggy needs, right? We are not amplifying doggy needs.
We'll see. Once your Mr. Chompers access is no longer on tap, you may feel differently. Hot stoppers. I don't think we've got to the end game yet, but I have now activated the section of the Hello Internet Patreon page so that any existing patrons and any future patrons can provide a postal address, like they can fill in a postal address section now. And if they decide to do so, it's a voluntary thing, obviously, but if they decide to do so, they will be going into a specially devised semi-random ballot, and I will occasionally be sending out random hot stoppers to people, and they will just arrive unexpectedly like a gift from Santa Claus. I will not be emailing or informing people that they are coming.
Right.
Partly because I like the surprise, and partly because if I did do that and then for some reason someone gets lost in the post,
right,
I get back to that original problem that I'm trying to avoid of administration. So you would not know it's coming.
Right, now we get back to fulfillment problems, yeah.
Exactly. Even though it's like a free gift, people will still get upset if I email them and say, you've got one coming, and then it doesn't arrive. So I'm not doing that.
I think that's great. Remind me, Brady, there's a thing I want to talk to you after the show, after we're done recording, about what to do with that, because I've been thinking about something along those lines. But I do have to say, it was very interesting reading through the feedback. I always really like it to see all the feedback in the Reddit and people coming up with ideas about what to do. I'm going to stay away from any specific solutions right now, but what I will say, my general feeling reading through people's ideas is I was aware of myself getting pulled toward and sort of repelled away from two kinds of ideas. I really liked all the ideas that people had that were just fun ideas. Like some people came up with some fun, possibly impractical and maybe not really doable ideas, but just like fun things. What could you do with 1,000 hot stoppers, right? And people came up with great ideas. And I just found it interesting that even though my question was, help us solve this economic problem last time, I found myself repelled away a little bit from the actual solutions to this problem. Like there were a couple of really good write-ups where people were going through like, oh, here's how you can solve this problem in a very efficient way. And just thought, no, I think these are whimsical hot stoppers.
I agree. I think these should be used in some kind of fun way. I also think a lot of the suggestions I read indicated to me that people hadn't really understood the problem. And they were saying, oh, no, this is an easy problem. Just like set this price and do this and organize this distribution person. And like they just then outlined a solution, which was the exact thing I was trying to avoid, which was a whole big thing.
Right.
So it's still unresolved. You've got yours now, though. I did send you some.
Yes.
What are your thoughts now that you've seen them in the real life flesh?
I absolutely love that.
Plastic. They're not actually made of flesh, of course.
Ooh.
That would be weird.
Yeah.
Flesh hot stoppers.
Yeah. If
AKA fingers.
Yeah, if I'd opened up an envelope and gotten some flesh-based hot stoppers, I don't think we'd be recording this podcast right now. I think our relationship would be terminated.
Mr. Chompers would have liked them.
No, we can't train Mr. Chompers on human flesh. That would be very much against the training that we're working very hard with him.
All right.
There's no joking about Mr. Chompers training. Brady.
Sorry.
It's absolutely serious. No, it's great. It's great seeing them as a whole big bunch, and I feel like it compels the mind with fun ideas. Seeing a big bunch of hot stoppers like that.
Have you actually used one though to stop hotness?
I have not yet used one to stop hotness. I promise when I do use the first hot stopper to stop hotness, I'll post it up on Twitter or on my second channel somewhere, so people can see the virgin use of a hot stopper. So
many people have responded to it. I guess we should just shout out to all the people who had something to say about our discussion last episode about the astronauts dressing up for Halloween. Oh man, I've got to say, yeah, there was so much feedback about this, and this is also one of those moments where even after. Well, we've been doing this show together now, 10 years? My ability to predict what people are going to comment on about in the show, I feel like it's not even bad. It's like my predictions are exactly opposites. Like if we just reversed what my predictions would be, that would be the truth. And I thought like, oh, the astronaut thing, like, oh, no one's probably going to talk about that. And then I was deeply concerned, like, oh man, there's going to be so much feedback about the 9/11 memorial. And it's like that 9/11 memorial, thumbs down. I don't like it. It stinks, right? And it's like feedback. A couple of comments that agree, and mostly silence, right? But astronauts dressed up as a minion is like, boom, so much feedback, and I felt like you were kind of backed into a corner by a lot of that feedback. I mean, I feel like I brought it upon myself to a degree because I was quite flamboyant about it. You know, I was quite over the top in my criticism. Maybe that caused some of the pushback, but also it was. Overwhelmingly, people disagree with my position. They disagree that it was silly and wrong for them to dress up as Spider-Man and minions and that. I've read almost all of the feedback, and I have to say, having read all the feedback and absorbed it, taken in what people had to say, I'm pretty much unmoved from my position. I think all the people responding have maybe misunderstood. They definitely have misunderstood some of my criticism, because I certainly don't really blame the astronauts for it. Yeah. And some people I felt like were going into bat for the astronauts. But I also think some of the feedback was maybe a little naive as to how NASA works and life on the space station works and how tightly controlled the media operation is with anything NASA related. I think people had in their minds the idea that the astronauts were sitting around on the ISS, drinking their morning coffee, their day off on Halloween, thinking about what to do, and came up with the idea that they were going to do a fun thing and take a photograph of it. And then if you are complaining about them in their Halloween costumes, it seems like you are the world's biggest Grinch.
But it's
it's like, hey, these guys are on a break. They should be allowed to just, be themselves.
Yeah, there was an enormous amount of shouldn't astronauts be allowed to have spare time on the ISS, and I think like this really drives to the heart about what's occurring here. Like if you think this is a spontaneous outburst from the astronauts and they were just doing a thing because it was fun to them, like, yeah, no one in the world is going to have a problem with that. But I think, even I, who do not follow space very much, know that like their time is incredibly regulated on there. Like they are so scheduled that maybe I'm wrong, but I'd be willing to bet my entire net worth that those things are scheduled zaniness, right, for PR purposes. That's what it is. And I think that's the feedback that you were getting is the idea, like, if it's genuine, then you are like a monster. But if it's scheduled zaniness, like, that's a very different thing.
Yeah, if these people, took this stuff up because they wanted to do something for their own kids or something, okay, if you want to go with that story, you can go with it. But like they're there in the PR position, all as like the group in front of the TV camera for the scheduled downlink. Like this was not something that just happened and someone down at Mission Control said, "Oh, that's classic. Let's grab this for the cameras as well."
Yeah,
like this was an
what a magical spontaneous moment.
The other argument that really. All the arguments people were making, I didn't really agree with. But, it's a bit unfair. I have the microphone, so it's not fair that I just, they have to have their say as well. And I have read their say. But this whole thing about, even astronauts need to relax and decompress and do fun things. Like, of course. And astronauts do have a lot of time off on the space station. And their time off is very protected, by the way. Like, getting someone to do work on the space station during their break is a big deal. They do have a lot of their own time and films and things to do. And the other thing that, again, was driving me a bit crazy was this whole inspiring kids. Like, I don't think that's the way to inspire kids to become an astronaut. And if that is the way to inspire kids to become an astronaut, I'm a bit worried about the sort of people who want to become astronauts.
Oh my God.
Like people are saying, some kid dressed as Spider-Man will take a lot of inspiration from seeing an astronaut dressed up as Spider-Man. That was kids dress up as astronauts. That's what kids dress up as. They don't need to look up at the astronauts and see them dressing up as Spider-Man. So anyway, look, I don't want to like dredge it all up again. I've read all the feedback, and like I get that people disagree, and I'm yet to read something that has made me change my mind. I think I have dealt with astronauts and International Space Station things before, and they are very tightly controlled. All the photos and the videos that come down, anything that's publicly released, has layers upon layers of bureaucracy involved. Mm-hmm. And if you think this was just a bunch of cheeky astronauts doing something for fun and then saying, look what we did, no one knew what we were up to. Maybe you're right. I don't know. I don't know the actual details of this case, but I would be very, very surprised by that.
There's an item in our show notes, which I think is maybe one of the oldest things in our show notes that I know I listed in for like their first 10 episodes, which was this very idea of like inspiring someone to become an astronaut. And like, I just, we'll never actually really do it as a full topic, so I'll just mention it now. But like, I find that stuff crazy making because like my feeling is always like, guess what? Hard things are hard. Do you want to become an astronaut? It's hard. Like this is one of the hardest career paths you could go down. And I remember there's like so much in the sciences of this idea of like, we want to encourage more people to do physics. And it's like, oh, okay, great. What's your plan? How do you want to make more people do physics, right? Because physics graduates are super valuable. And the answer was always the same thing. The answer was, oh, well, we're going to inspire more people to go into physics by dumbing down the physics, right? By doing all kinds of demos and flashy stuff that has nothing to do with what actual physics is. And okay, if this even works, it's just a trick, right? Like you are hoodwinking someone into a career in which they're totally going to fail or do poorly, because like, guess what? Physics is actually a whole bunch of math. And I feel so strongly about it because like the whole reason why as a kid I felt, quote, inspired to go into physics was precisely because it felt like a sanctuary of like, oh, thank God. Like, here's a subject that is just hard, but it's also clear and crisp, and there's no ambiguity and there's no nonsense. And so like I always worry that this kind of stuff actually pushes away the kinds of people that you want to go into those fields. And anybody that it encourages, it's not actually helpful. Like I totally agree with you. Like if some kid sees an astronaut dressed up as Spider-Man and decides that he's going to become an astronaut based on that, like that kid's not going to be an astronaut, right? Like, it's not going to happen.
No, they're probably not cut from the right cloth.
Yeah.
But I mean, I can see a counter argument. I can see a counter argument that maybe there will be a bunch of people who will be reached by this photo that had never considered aerospace before, and this was the tiny little spark that lit the fire. And when they looked into it further, they found other things that were more legitimate about aerospace that appealed to them. So I think there is an alternative argument. But the thing is, astronaut is a job that hasn't even got that problem, because astronauts like go in massive fiery rockets, and they're in this extreme environment, and everything about the astronaut job is quite kind of, sexy anyway. It's not like a job where there's like a paucity of applicants.
Yeah, I'm willing to bet there are way more people applying to astronaut school than astronaut school lets in.
It's really, really hard to become an astronaut because everybody wants to do it. So they have no PR problem here.
Right.
And also, do you think people want to become basketballers because they once saw Michael Jordan dress up as Spider-Man? No, they saw him playing basketball and thought, wow, playing basketball looks awesome. I want to be a basketballer. It's the same with astronauts. Just being astronauts is cool enough.
But there is this weird idea of like, oh, we're going to get people to go do a thing by showing them the thing in a way that it isn't. It's like, that's a terrible idea. But yeah, the astronaut school, way oversubscribed. I think they're turning a lot of people away at the gate. Or like, I'm sorry, we can't let you into astronaut school because there's so many people who are applying. Guess what? We need to take the best of the best. Like, you need to be super smart and in incredible physical condition in order to get into astronaut school.
The right stuff, they call it.
Hello, Internet. Is there a career that you want to inspire kids to go into? Well, the best way you're going to reach the kids these days, or anybody, is by building a website. And as you know, there's only one place you want to go to build your website, and that's Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one solution that allows you to create a beautiful website without any hassles. Whatever idea you have in your head that you want to turn into a website, you can use Squarespace to take that idea and showcase your work, write a blog or publish other serialized content, perhaps a podcast even, or sell products online. Squarespace makes this easy to do by giving you access to beautiful templates created by world-class designers, a powerful built-in e-commerce functionality that lets you sell anything online, and the ability to customize the look and feel and settings and everything just by clicking and dragging. There's no need to learn HTML and figure out how to properly close that blink tag with Squarespace. Nope. Just click, 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 and you get it exactly the way you want it to look. And if you have any trouble at all, just reach out to Squarespace's 24/7 award-winning customer support. So if you are ready to take your idea and make it real, just go to squarespace.com/hello and get a 10% discount. That's squarespace.com/hello, where you can sign up for free for 14 days and receive 10% off your first purchase. Squarespace. Think it, dream it, make it. Last episode, I asked feedback on whether or not normal photography settings can trigger an epileptic seizure. And I'm here to report that the feedback I received was exactly 0 items of feedback, right? Nothing. I heard absolutely nothing. And
what are you saying? You're saying people with epilepsy are not interactive?
Yes, Brady. That's the correct conclusion to draw. No,
you are lazy. Yeah. You are lazy, people with epilepsy. You should be on the Reddit helping us out.
On a podcast, if you ask for feedback and the audience is Hello Internet audience, like, you're going to get a lot of feedback. I think there is probably nothing that people would love to talk about more than their own medical problems. Like, so you're asking for medical problem feedback. It's like, bam, people love that conversation, right? Like, let me tell you all about all my medical problems, right? Or like, oh my God, I have a cousin with this exact medical problem. So my feeling that like I heard nothing, just tumbleweeds on an infinite oasis. It was nothing. It just 100% confirmed to me that this is one of these many fake safety things, right? That someone has the idea that this can occur.
This is the camera flashes. This is the single camera flashes causing a problem during school photos.
Yeah, that this idea is written down because someone just thinks it's a possibility, and then it's like an idea that spreads and metastasizes across a whole variety of industries because nobody wants to be the person who contradicts the idea that like a camera flash can cause an epileptic seizure. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this week will be the actual feedback, but I'm guessing not. I'm guessing not on that one. Fake safety.
And by the way, all the people who have admonished Gray and I for causing a problem in their productivity and workflow because we introduced them to that paperclip game, you will get no apology from us because we could not have warned you any more that game would take a lot of your time. But my goodness, a lot of people seem to have gotten into that.
Oh my God. I have to say, I did really enjoy that because I feel like this has happened enough in my own life. I'm minding my own business. And then something blows a tremendous productivity hole right through the center of my life. I think everybody knows this experience. And I did get some unreasonable amount of joy from seeing all the people replying on Twitter saying like, I know that you warned me, but nonetheless, I had no idea, right? It's like I lost 2 days. So I feel like we were 100% in the clear on that because yes, we could not have warned more clearly. But people still click the button, and many of them click the button in situations that they totally knew they shouldn't have clicked it. But there you go. So universal paperclips, it is spreading, replicating throughout the world. I
had a nice little bit of feedback because the person who made the game, this is Frank Lance, and he tweeted soon after the podcast came out, I can't believe I got the number file guy. I'm so happy right now.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So he feels like he's fishing in the world as well, right? It's like, who else can I catch in my hook?
So I told him that he was responsible for probably preventing the release of possibly 2 number file videos as a result of making that game.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, actually, you know what? There is something that was really grinding my gears over the feedback on this that I just want to mention before I forget. And it was this... Okay, so listeners, I need to explain something about podcasts and conversations to you right now. Just because a thing is not explicitly mentioned does not mean that Brady and I do not know about the thing. And I saw so many comments from people who were saying a variation of, I can't believe that Gray doesn't know about cow clicker games or idle games. Like, I can't believe he's never come across one of these things before. That is outrageous and shocking to me that he's never seen a game in this genre before. How ridiculous. And then like showing me a bunch of these different things. And I feel like when we were having that conversation, I was making reference to these other like game mechanics that are quite cheap. It's like, guys, that's what I was referring to. Or even if I didn't say that, it's like, yes, it would be quite shocking if someone who likes games a lot had never come across one of these games. But like the amount of feedback, I don't know, there's something about this that drives me crazy.
Gray, you know better than this by now.
I know.
The internet exists for people to try to say they know something that someone else doesn't know.
I know. But I'm just, as I'm saying it out loud, I'm just realizing I have to recategorize this in my mind as the you forgot to mention feedback on videos, right? Which also drives me crazy. Where it's like, I started with 20,000 words and it went down to 1,000 words. Like, trust me, I didn't forget to mention a thing, like the most obvious thing. So
the only thing that would have been more annoying is if someone said, "Oh, this is stupid. Podcast X talked about this game 3 weeks ago."
Right? Yeah. Yeah. So
someone else has already spoken about this, therefore it is forbidden to speak about it ever again.
Yeah. That would be another kind of feedback. So I just want to mention right now, like, I have played a lot of these kind of games, and I don't like all of them. If If you listen to that section about universal paperclips and you were thinking, oh, this is just another one of these clicker type games, I just want to make it really clear. This game validates the existence of the entire genre, which I think is mostly boring and a kind of psychological unfunness trap. But like this game is different. So if you heard that and you didn't try it because you know what kind of game we're talking about, try it anyway. Like I really, really think this is the diamond in the rough for this genre.
Can I plug something of mine?
What would you like to plug, Brady?
I want to plug one of my oldest YouTube channels, which is Periodic Videos, which is my chemistry YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. And I want to plug it for a very specific reason, and that is Professor Sir Martin Polyakov, who is the star of most of the videos. He's the professor with the big fuzzy grey hair. I've been working with him for many, many years. Mm-hmm. He's a dear friend. He's also responsible for a lot of my other subsequent work. Like, he's been a key plank in a lot of my channels getting to where they've gotten. So he's been a very important part of my YouTube career. He is turning 70 years old in the next week or two as we are recording now. I think, let me check his birthday.
Yeah.
The 16th of December.
16th of December.
On the 16th of December, he is turning 70. This is in the year 2017, if you're listening in the far off future. So, and like, you know, we don't get each other birthday presents or anything, but if there's one thing that Sir Martin is truly obsessed with, it is Periodic Videos YouTube channel statistics. He follows them much more than a distinguished professor with lots of responsibilities should be following YouTube statistics. And anytime we reach any milestone or are about to reach any milestone or anything happens across numerous videos, he'll be like, oh, this video we made 2 years ago just passed 1 million views. And like he's watching it day and night.
He's got his eye on the ball.
He's got his eye on the ball. And almost exactly on his 70th birthday, Periodic Videos, the channel, is due to hit, you know, probably the milestone of milestones that a YouTube channel hits. And that is 1 million subscribers.
Yeah, that's the big one. That's the big one.
That's the one that people make a song and dance about and they give you a gold button, etc.
Yeah, I think the 1 million subscribers is a bigger deal than the 10 million subscribers by a lot. Like that is the biggest milestone that a channel can cross.
Yeah. Martin is excited about this upcoming thing, and he has noted that it could have happened on his birthday. Mm-hmm. Although looking at sort of some of the projections and the statistics, our projected 1 million subscriber number has now drifted out slightly beyond his birthday. So this is where my plea to the Hello Internet listeners comes in. If you have a YouTube account and you're a YouTube person and you haven't subscribed to Periodic Videos, but you think maybe you would, or you've never looked at it and it might interest you, now would be a really nice time for you to do it for me, because I would love to get close to 1 million in time for his birthday. I think maybe we won't quite do it, but I would like to try, and this is my plea. I'm not asking you to subscribe to the channel if, like, you're aware of it and dislike it and want nothing to do with it, then you know, fair enough. There's not much I can say to that. But if you've never looked at it, or you like it but you just never got around to subscribing to it, and you are ever likely to, now is a good time to do it, because I'd like to get close for Sir Martin's birthday, because he means a lot to me.
Yeah, and I think this is a good time to mention the channel to try to hit this mark. Because if you listen back at earlier shows, you can hear me sometimes speculate about who on earth would be listening to this podcast who doesn't know our YouTube channels. I am aware that over time, that ratio has drifted, that we do have more and more listeners who have come across the podcast and really don't know very much about our YouTube careers in any way. So if you are also one of those listeners now who back in the early days I suspected couldn't possibly exist, but now I do know exist in serious numbers, this is an excellent time to go check out Periodic Videos and go subscribe, right? And take a look at that channel. If you are one of those listeners who knows the podcast and doesn't follow our YouTube channels, go subscribe to Periodic Videos. Go check it out. Go take a look at it.
It's a channel that's going through a bit of a change at the moment too for me. It's something that I've been starting to think differently about this particular channel. It's one of my oldest, And it's funny, and I know you've been going through a little bit of this too, maybe with your channel, but when you do a YouTube channel for a long time, you occasionally go through, I don't know, it's like the YouTube equivalent of like a midlife crisis. and you start thinking, where am I going? What am I doing? What's the point of this? And a lot of my channels have sort of been continuing business as usual, but periodic videos is one that I'm really revisiting in my head at the moment. So it's an interesting time to be subscribing, maybe.
Okay, so well, how old is periodic videos?
Oh, man. I was scared you'd ask that. It looks like it started in June 2008.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Okay. In YouTube land, that's more than just a midlife crisis. That's a pretty...
What, you think I'm on death's door?
That's a... Wow. I had no idea it was that old. Yeah, that's very old. Okay. Right.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. Boy, you are an established presence on YouTube. That's for sure, Brady. You are very established with periodic
Elder
videos.
statesman.
You are in the elder statesman career transition of your channel. What are you thinking of?
Well, the thing is, the way periodic video started was making a video about every element on the periodic table.
Right.
And then we did 118 really, really quickly for various reasons. Like I'm talking like 6 or 7 weeks fast. So we did a lot of videos really quickly on all the elements, and a lot of them for that reason were kind of, rushed and half baked, and some of them are just like, 20, 30 seconds and not much is said. And then once the channel sort of became a little bit successful, more than we expected, we thought, oh, okay, well, I guess we'll keep this channel going now. And let's redo all the elements. So that was the plan. We were going to redo each element video and make them more elaborate, more detail and more experiments, and make them, more of a thing to watch. Mm-hmm. But then as the channel kind of evolved and it became like a general chemistry channel, not just about the elements, we started doing other stuff, and we started kind of, drinking the addictive potion of the occasional viral video, doing silly things and having travels and adventures and making all these chemistry videos. And we kind of only updated elements very occasionally. Mm-hmm. And those videos have just kind of, wallowed in history. I mean, they're really old now. They're nearly 10 years old. But a way a lot of people visit the channel is to watch the element videos and to start going through the elements. Mm-hmm. And I've now realized that's a bit embarrassing, because it's like, oh gosh, some of these videos are really old. They're really low resolution. They're nowhere near the quality of the videos we'd make now. So I've kind of really got it in my head. No, we need to abandon all this other frivolous stuff and get back to basics and redo all the element videos. And I want almost all of our releases now to be, a redux of an element video. So that's what we've done the last few, and that's what we're recording at the moment. And these days when Sir Martin calls me up and says, oh, I've got a crazy idea for some experiment or some chemistry thing we're doing, 9 times out of 10 I'm saying to him, no, we are redoing the elements. We're totally focusing on that. And even though these videos will never be viral, the way that dipping a cheeseburger in acid or blowing something up is likely to give you the occasional viral video, I've kind of said, I'm not interested in that anymore. I'm more interested in the legacy of these 118 element videos. And at the moment, some of them are just too outdated. So that's where I want to take the channel now. And I think Martin and other people in the chemistry department at the University of Nottingham are kind of on board with me on that. So that's the new direction. Less look at me like fun time things, and more back to where we started.
So you are de-viraling the channel.
Yeah, in a way, yeah. Mm-hmm. It's like, I'm less worried about sort of view count and hitting new people by being attention seeking. There will be no more dressing up at Halloween.
Right. Well, this is kind of what I'm wondering, right? Is it actually ties quite nicely into the previous conversations. Yeah, you're not pulling these stunts for the chemistry PR department, right? You're doing some meat and potatoes periodic video revisiting. And it looks like at the time of recording you've done 4 of these new ones so far. Helium, francium, technetium and nickel.
Yeah, they're the most recent ones, and I've got chromium coming up pretty shortly as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean we have been updating element videos all through the project. So occasionally we do drop an element update, but now that's all I want us to do. so that eventually when people say, I'm going to sit back and watch all 118,
Right.
all of them are going to be good.
Right.
Because at the moment, some of them aren't good. And people will say, oh, I can't believe your video on element X is like, that's nowhere near as good as your other ones. That's what I want to fix.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at your channel, and the oldest one that's listed as an element video is Cobalt, from 9 years ago, and in dramatic 480p resolution. And what I really like is it's not even a full 480p because it looks like you hard exported the black bars around the video, so it's actually in the center of the screen. It's not taking up the full YouTube player. So yeah, that's,
I didn't do that. That happened
okay.
retrospectively. Like when you first watched that back in the day, that would have taken up the whole screen. But something changed at some point, and a whole bunch of my videos suddenly got black bars all around them, the really old ones. And that's only a minute 40 long, and 300,000 people have watched it, which I'm a bit embarrassed by now, because people love going through and watching the whole collection. And that's what I want to change, when people go through and watch the whole collection. Because the thing I guess I haven't pointed out is Periodic Videos also has its own website, which is an entire periodic table. And you can click on any given element and watch the video on that element from YouTube. So it's kind of like picking chocolates from a chocolate box.
Right.
So it is a kind of snacking channel in that way, where people like to get on a streak and go through the elements, and that's where we get found out by the old videos a bit. So,
aren't you afraid though that if you deviral the channel, that you will fall on the bad side of the algorithm?
I hadn't been thinking about that, but I don't know. I think of this channel differently. I don't think of this channel as like a business enterprise like that. So I don't worry about that. I think this channel always has a different role to play. Do you think I'm doing the right thing?
Well, I don't know. Here's the thing, Brady. You have what makes you different, Brady, and what makes you special is you are a man with many YouTube channels. So I think you, unlike many other people who would be in the YouTube space, this is part of Periodic Videos is like part of a Brady portfolio of channels, and so I think you would have less to worry about if you were going to deviral a channel and get sort of go back to basics, go back to the beginning and redo a bunch of stuff. I don't think it's a bad idea, but I feel more comfortable saying that because you have a bunch of other channels, right? But also the thing to bear in mind with Periodic Videos is it does have nearly 1 million subscribers. So, and although I realize a lot of them are not active, and I also realize that subscribers don't necessarily mean everyone finds out about your videos, I do feel like the channel's big enough that it can give people just, kind of what they signed up for, and I don't have to worry about pandering to people who aren't interested. I feel a bit like I want to service the actual audience and not be preoccupied with new audience. So in some ways, I'm happy just to feed the existing audience and hope that new audience comes on just gradually who appreciate it for what it is, and not for, occasional craziness. So, okay, this is not to say that the new videos aren't going to have awesome explosions and be cool. They're just not going to be. They're just not going to be dressed up in that way. They're going to be more. Here's the element. Right. There'll be cool stuff in the video. The whole idea is that all the videos are cool now. Right. But it's not going to be as gimmicky. Well, okay. Here's a question though, because you are doing explicit remakes of your old videos, right? And I understand it's a very different thing from the way they were produced in the beginning to the way that they're done now, right? And this is a long period of time, and there are many factors here. I almost don't want to say it. I almost don't want to put the idea in your mind, but do you have any worries that there's some kind of magic to the earlier videos that even though to your eye they seem like, as the creator you can just see this is older and it's shorter, but do you think maybe that part of the reason that the channel is successful is because those earlier videos were produced the way they were and people like them? And do you worry basically about replacing the old ones with the new ones, that maybe it's not quite the same? We're not taking down the old ones, obviously, or deleting them. They're there as version 1. And when you say remake, it's not like I'm
doing like experiments that we did before, but reshooting them. In most of the case, we're replacing 45 seconds of a guy talking at his desk with 10 minutes of experiments and samples and better stories and information and research. So it's not so calling them like a remake. It's not like a shot for shot remake of Psycho or something like that. It is more of a
that was kind of exactly what I had in my mind, is like a shot for shot remake of Psycho, right? It's like, oh god, it just doesn't work. It's terribly boring.
Yeah, so it's not. We're not doing that. They are brand new videos with all new stuff and new information. But I think the charm of the old videos, they were of their time. And they feel like they're of their time now. People expect different things from YouTube videos now, different production qualities, different pacing, different stuff in the videos. And, we became successful because no one else was doing it, No one else was doing something as crazy as making a video about every single element. But people expect different things now, so I'm not worried about that. I think the things that make the channel what it is are still there, like a chattiness and the professor and seeing real stuff happening in real labs and real scientists talking, and Martin's personality and a kind of a homemade feel to them, which I'm still keeping. It's not like I'm suddenly putting everything on tripods and making like a whole new look. I'm just trying to make them better.
Actually, I think that's a good point that you make there, because I often find that some stuff that I watch, like when they upgrade to like the new studio and it becomes more professional, it somehow feels like, oh, it's not quite the same, right? So it's good to hear that you're keeping that particular.
No, it's still supposed to be unprofessional.
Right.
When things go wrong, it stays in the video, and those human moments are staying in. It's more about just putting more in the videos and taking more time on them, because we were in such a rush the first time, and now we're not in a rush.
Well, if you're making them longer, and the rumors about the algorithm are true, then maybe this is the best move you could possibly make, right? The YouTube algorithm apparently loves long videos, keeping people on the site as long as possible. So 118 15 to 20 minute long videos, that's a pretty big chunk of people's time and attention that YouTube could get from them.
People always say that, but long videos are only good at keeping people on the channel if people watch the long videos for a long time. Yeah,
I know. And I'm not super convinced by that theory anyway.
Is the CGP Grey channel going through a midlife crisis yet, or?
It's an interesting thing, because this summer I realized that YouTube is now the longest job I've ever had, which is just a strange realization for me.
That's just happened to me too.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Huh. How do you feel about that?
Strange.
No.
Yeah.
My mental framework just does not match this. I think it's partly because it felt like I was a teacher for forever. That is a big mental landscape that it's hard for me to feel like the YouTube time is now longer than that. And it's also interesting even just to think like, I made a joke before about how long we've done this podcast, but like we've been doing this podcast for quite a long time. And there's something that my brain just cannot place in these things, where I still think of YouTube as the new project, right? And then Hello Internet as like, oh, the new project. Right? I was like, but actually they've been going on for quite a while now. And I just, I almost wonder if in, double it. So I've been doing the YouTube channel seriously for about 6 years now. And I almost wonder, like, if I double that number, will it still feel the same? Will it still feel like that this is still the new thing? It doesn't feel like it's the old thing.
Type thing.
Yeah, like it's the upstart type thing, even though that is manifestly not true. I don't know. There's something about it that I just can't place correctly in my brain. So I have a hard time thinking about it. But when I realized it, I found it really quite shocking and surprising to realize that YouTube is now the longest job I have ever had.
Do you think that surprise and feeling is likely to result in anything or will manifest itself in any way? Or it's just like back on with it? Or does that make you start thinking differently and think, should I be doing this differently? Do I need to change things up, or is it just like a little?
I think I have a different view of it because I don't know, the way people describe my channel. I feel like I have never heard someone describe my YouTube channel in a way that I would agree with. People would say that it's a channel about history, and I'd be like, I don't even understand what you mean by this, or various ways that people have described what my YouTube channel is. Like, I've never come across a description that I actually feel like matches up with the way it is in my head, and I can't really quite articulate the way it is in my head. But I also feel like that the channel has naturally changed over time anyway. Like, I forget what it is, but it takes a long time before even the concept of stick figure me shows up in a video. Like, that's suddenly a shift. Like, that doing that kind of thing has a change in the way, like, oh, I'm talking directly to the audience now, instead of this being like a literal slideshow like it would be in a classroom. So like that's one that's just easy to point to. But I feel like there's been a lot of little changes and evolutions over time. But I don't know. It's a funny thing, because in my head I feel like it's sort of always changing and is always the same. And I think that that's always the way it will be.
Do any of the changes that happen on your channel, though, for example, the introduction of Stick Figure Grey, are they ever like lines in the sand, like where you deliberately say, okay, it's time for something new, I'm going to introduce a stick figure version of me because I want to change the emphasis to me talking out at the viewers rather than us looking together at a slideshow, or do they happen just kind of accidentally and you'll do it once and think, oh, that kind of worked, I might try that again sometime, and then after like 10 videos you're like, oh, well, I guess that's the thing now?
Yeah.
Like, are they, because you seem like a guy who makes a lot of strategic, deliberate decisions rather than just falls into things.
The stick figure me, I can't remember what the video was, but I do remember that was trying to solve a particular problem in the way I was explaining something. And also, it was in no small part a kind of envy of a lot of what other educational YouTubers in the space can do, where they can show you animations and interesting graphics to help an explanation, and then they can just cut to them talking, either when a visual is not needed, or if it's a moment where it's a little bit abstract and what you would put on screen wouldn't necessarily line up with anything that you're talking about. I remember being quite envious of the ability to do that cut to camera thing. So introducing Stick Figure Grey was partly the ability to do that. Like, oh, I can cut to camera now and it's just me talking. I would say the biggest line in the sand thing that I did do very intentionally was actually that Las Vegas vlog that I uploaded a little while ago. That was very much a deliberate feeling of, I want to put up something on the channel that is really different, right? That it's not like, oh, I've done a serious video where Gray is talking in serious tones, and that's different from all of the others. Or a video like The Trouble with Transporters, which has a different animation style, but all of those are still kind of the same. Like, they're in the same family of the videos that I do. But the vlog is like a totally different thing, and is also completely unexpected, right? If you've been following the history of the channel, like it's weird to upload a vlog. I did that partly just because I wanted to establish a precedent of I can upload random things if I want to. So that was a deliberate sort of thing. It was also just interesting to see, like, how are people going to react to when I do something differently. But I think maybe that's the closest one to that's a line in the sand. Otherwise, it's things just evolve over time. I don't think anything in the entertainment industry can stay the same. Like, I think stuff has to change. You know, even like you're redoing your videos, right? But you're changing the way they are because you want them to be updated for modern audience sensibilities. And I think you also just have to change because the environment around you changes.
So when you look at a change to your channel, for example, the saying, hey, vlogs are a thing now too, like, you know, don't do you think that's you being like super rational business Gray saying, you know, to survive going forward and for the channel to grow and sustain, I need to change and adapt? Or is it more an artistic thing? Like, I want to spread my wings and not just be a guy who has to do animations and explaining. And I don't want to be constrained by your expectations of the channel. Is this a business rational decision you've made, or is it an artistic decision, I guess is what I'm saying?
I would say it's neither. It's actually just a personal decision that I feel like, as people who follow my work may know, I'm not a big fan of regularity and things always being the same and predictable. And that vlog went up in no small part because I did feel like there had been too much predictability for too long on the channel. And so I wanted to do a thing that was just totally out of left field. I wish I could say, oh, wow, it was an incredibly smart business decision. But it was by far and away like the worst business decision I ever made for the channel. In terms of every metric I can possibly have, putting up that vlog video was the worst thing I could do on every one of my spreadsheets. It was really just something personally that I wanted to do, just to have something up there that was different and establish the possibility that, like, oh, this can happen again in the future.
But as someone who seems to care so little about what other people think, why do you need to do that? Well, unless it's something you want to make, you want to do. Like, why do you need to even put down that marker? Like,
but that's because it is something that I want to do, right? Like it's.
All right, you answer my question then. It's like an artistic thing.
Yeah, I guess if you want to phrase it that way, you could say it's an
I don't mean like you're
thing.
an artist, but yeah.
In
an editorial decision rather than a business decision, maybe.
Yeah, an editorial decision might be a better way to put it.
Yeah.
Because I think it's partly... There is something about this idea turned out to be totally wrong, but I'll just specify what my thinking was at the time. There is something limiting about the animation because it's so time intensive that it forestalls certain kinds of videos from being able to be made. Because you just have to say, like, if a video is going to be made, like, there's going to need to be an enormous amount of animation time. And so my thinking was, I'm going to do a video that's a different kind of thing that can also possibly have a much shorter turnaround time, because I don't need to animate every frame. I'm just going to film stuff.
Now that sounds like a business decision.
No, but I know why you say it's a business decision, but it's more a question of, like, I want to make a certain kind of video. And up until this point, the answer is, okay, well, whatever you're going to make, it has to be an animation. And then that cuts off a huge number of possibilities.
Yeah.
So I can see why you're saying it sounds like a business decision, but it's much more a personal decision of, I want to do a thing that maybe doesn't require all the animation. And let me...
Yeah, it's made, you want to make Michelangelo's David, but you've only ever done oil painting. So now you've said, no, I'm going to try sculptures instead.
That's aiming quite high. But yes, that's the idea. I'm going to be an amazing sculptor now. But anyway, joke was on me. That vlog took up way more time than an animation of the similar length would have taken. So I was really, really wrong about that estimation, but I was still glad to do it. But yeah, maybe classifying it as an editorial decision is a correct way to frame it.
Interesting stuff. Well, your channel sounds interesting, but just to get back to the main point,
right?
Go and subscribe to periodic videos.
Go check out the Elder Statesman periodic videos, and to remind people, we would like to hit 1 million subscribers by, when is the date again, Brady?
December 16.
December 16. So.
Oh, now you're going to break the poor little prof's heart if we fall short.
We'll see what we can do, and I will do my part by promising to get this episode up before December 15th at the very latest.
But people listening, don't think, oh, I must go and do that after the show. Pause the show and do it now, because I know you'll forget.
Yeah, you'll forget.
You will forget.
Yeah. You'll 100% forget.
Do it now. In the fullness of time, when I look back over the many episodes of Hello Internet, I think one of the greatest things I'll take from this long and winding journey will be my discovery of Fracture. That's because this company, which lets you print photos directly onto glass pieces immediately ready for hanging and display, has transformed my gift buying experience. Anytime I'm stuck for a present idea, I choose an appropriate photo for the right recipient, upload it to Fracture's website, and in no time, the gift arrives, and it always goes down a treat. What mum or dad doesn't like a picture of their kids or grandkids to show off above the fireplace? What angler wouldn't like an immortalised image of that giant trout they caught on last month's fishing trip? And hey, let's get a bit meta here. What Tim wouldn't like a nail and gear sturdily displayed above their desk at work? Or, now let's be fair, a fractured flaggy flag that could be carefully hung so that it doesn't accidentally fall onto that hard tiled floor and smash into a million pieces, because he wouldn't want that to happen. Now, as we record this episode, with Christmas fast approaching, I'd seriously consider this as your chance to put something special under the tree on December 25. But a word of warning, don't dilly-dally, because my sources at the factory in Florida, where these things are made, tell me that festive orders are starting to come in thick and fast. Now, you can get 15% off your first Fracture order, and that's a really great saving, by going to fracture.me and then use the offer code HELLO15. That's the word hello and the number 15 all joined together. Again, fracture.me, offer code HELLO15. You'll get 15% off. There's a one-question survey too, and you just use that to tell them that Hello Internet sent you to Fracture. That's good for us. The 15%, that's good for you, as are the happy family members at Christmas. Thanks to Fracture for supporting the show. I was only joking about the flaggy flag, like smashing on the floor. I wouldn't want flaggy flag to smash on the floor. I wouldn't want that. Gray, from following you on Twitter, and from following almost everyone on the world on Twitter, not that I follow everyone in the world on Twitter, but you know what I mean.
I was like, wait, what? Are you one of those? Are you one of those Twitter accounts now that follows 500,000 people to get follow backs, Brady? Is that what you're doing? You pandering to Twitter that way?
I haven't got to that stage. So one thing that causes endless frustration, and I know it causes you frustration, is package deliveries from delivery companies. And I've seen even the normally calm CGP Grey, who is reluctant to wield his mighty power against corporations, get particularly upset at a delivery company recently when they were doing what they do to me all the time, and that is don't even ring your doorbell or knock on your door and just drop the package and run, or worse yet, put a card through saying you weren't here and run, which I absolutely hate.
The card through the door. That was a charming days of yore when I used to at least just get the card through the door. Recently, I've been getting pure email notifications now, where I just like, we tried to deliver to your house, but you weren't home.
Cheeky. So there's no proof they were even there.
Well, there's proof that they were there, Brady, which is a photograph of your front door. At least that's what it's supposed to be. But in every single one of the emails I have ever gotten, it is a photograph of what I presume is just the inside of the delivery man's pocket. It is literally nothing that registers anything as proof on there. So it's just a lie, right? It's just a total 100% lie. And yeah, I did lose my cool over this a little while ago and complained on Twitter about package deliveries because I was waiting for something in particular at home all day, and of course they're like, "Oh, you weren't home. You weren't home." Yes, I was, you bastards. I was waiting all day.
They lie.
Before we go any further, though, I do want to get something on record here, which was I was very, very careful in the way I was wording my complaint, and I just want to get this out of the way before we continue the conversation further. I do not think this is the delivery people's fault. My view of this is it is the company's fault, and whatever way they are arranging the incentives for the employees. I think it's very easy to just think, oh, these delivery drivers, they're so lazy. And my first angry version of the tweet was about lazy delivery drivers. This, of course, was back when we had 140 characters, and I had to rethink it, and then I phrased it in a much better way to place blame where I think it really goes. So I just want to make that really clear. Like, from everything I can gather, I think this is the fault of the delivery companies overloading the drivers, and so then they have every incentive in the world to just skip where they can bank on someone probably not being there so that they can like check off that they've gone through all the things that they need to do in a day. So just wanted to get that out of the way first.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because my recent experience that I want to share, I think emphasizes how much the delivery drivers are working in these incredibly strange straitjackets that the companies are putting on them,
Okay.
and the pressures they're putting on them. Because everyone has had cases where, they get a message saying, we knocked on the door and you weren't home. And they say, yes, I was. And there's this whole, you're a bunch of liars.
Right.
I had a recent delivery experience that went the other way that really emphasized the problem. And that was the other day, there was a knock on the door. I went down. There was a delivery driver with the package for me. And I had to sign for it. And he had to scan the barcode with his little device to say he'd sent it. So he was about to pass it over to me, and he went to scan it, and it wouldn't scan. And he's like, oh, hang on. He tried again. Oh, it wouldn't scan. And then he looked at his device and said, oh, I'm a minute and a half early. I can't scan this until it's the right time. And we had to stand there together at the door waiting for the time to elapse until we were in the window that he was supposed to be at my door.
Oh.
And then as soon as the clock ticked over, like, okay, beep, he scanned it, handed it to me, and he could leave. So they're so tightly controlled at both ends of lateness and earliness of where they have to be at what times. If they're running early, they get constrained.
Wow.
It was amazing.
That is frankly breathtaking.
Yeah. He couldn't give it to me because he couldn't scan it.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like, this would never occur to me. I can imagine maybe why this happens, just like you say, as a way to further pen in the driver's freedom of motion.
Yeah, because later on, if there's something that has to be delivered like between 4 and 6, they want to make sure his whole day is controlled so that he's arriving at the right places at the right time and doesn't get too ahead of schedule.
Yeah. Wow. I feel like I'm knocked speechless by the horror of that. In no small part, the horror of having to stand awkwardly with the delivery guy for 90 seconds while the two of you are waiting for a countdown counter to finish.
That's okay. Luckily, I have the world's cutest chihuahua that loves coming and playing with delivery people.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, that would make it much easier. I feel like I would be tempted to close the door and be like...
Then you'll get a note saying you weren't home.
Oh, God. That is what I would get. I don't know. It might be worth it to avoid the awkwardness, though.
It's a problem that seems to be getting worse with time and not better with time. I feel like it's causing me more problems in life as time goes by.
Because I was complaining mightily on Twitter, I did get some interesting sort of private feedback that was confirming that what's happening is largely that the drivers are just banking on places that they know where the deliveries are going to be accepted. So it's like these delivery companies are actually just delivering to business and commercial addresses, and that they're blowing off the residential addresses just the moment there's any kind of delay in their schedule and where they should be. And this is one of these times, like, I don't understand how the world is the way it is, because isn't this the company's whole job? Like, your job is to deliver packages. Like, why are you not better at delivering packages? We're handing you money to do the thing. I feel like package delivery has gotten way worse. One of the ways that I feel like I have a subjective measure of this is because I have an office in my home, right? And we get lots of packages sent to the house. It used to drive me so crazy, like how often the bell would ring for the packages getting delivered. But over the last 18 months, the number of times that has occurred has definitely gone down. And it's way more of these there's no package to be delivered at all things. So I really do feel like delivery companies are worse at doing their fundamental job than they used to before. And it bothers me double when I think about things like the grocery delivery, where you can, I don't know if you have this where you are, if the city's big enough, but you can have someone do the grocery shopping for you and then have them deliver the groceries to your house. And that to me is kind of amazing, because it's like, okay, grocery stores, your primary business is not delivering things. This is just an auxiliary business. Yet, nonetheless, I can just pick a 15-minute window in which I want a man to show up with eggs and cleaning fluids and toilet paper and bananas and whatever. And they're there, bam, every time, delivering the groceries. And it's like, this is not even your job. Why can't actual delivery companies get this same thing accomplished? I find it really frustrating.
There's just not the incentives in place. The grocery store has the incentive, doesn't it, that they don't do the deal if they don't deliver the fresh fruit. It's not like they can not leave the food. So they're just not incentivized.
Yeah, but I guess the feeling here is it's like there's a delivery cartel that all the delivery companies are equally bad, right? So, and they recognize like, okay, as long as nobody gets better, none of us have to get better. Like that's what it feels like is actually happening, because it's like I'm paying you to deliver a thing, but I can't get it. But I also I have no options here, right? I just have to keep paying you to not deliver the thing, and then push the burden on me to go to some warehouse to pick it up off hours. I'm sure you must run into this, Brady, but do you, like the feeling of sort of abusing your power as someone who has a bunch of Twitter followers to complain at a company? Like, do you feel the call of that sometimes to yell at a company on the internet on Twitter?
I do. Where do you draw the line? How do you decide when to and when not to do it? I mean, you do it less than me, but you just use Twitter less than me. So
I don't know.
It's mood, isn't it? It's mood.
Partly is like, where's the rageometer, right? Is the rageometer very, very large, or is it very, very small? But I also feel like I'm caught in a bit of a loop with these things where companies have taught me that there is no more effective way to get their attention than to yell at them on Twitter.
Yeah.
And I presume that having a large number of followers certainly helps with that. But it also seems like when I look at company Twitter accounts, like they are very active on Twitter in replying to people. I feel like the companies are essentially begging me to complain about them on Twitter.
Squeaky wheel gets the oil.
If I'm going to complain about a company on Twitter, there needs to be one of two things. I need to be really angry, deeply, deeply angry, or I need to think of a way that I can complain that's kind of funny. Right? I think those are my two markers for if I'm going to complain publicly about a company on Twitter. I think those are the two that I'm looking for.
Oh, there's a third factor. I agree with those two, but there's a third factor for me, and it's how urgently do I need this problem solved? So, I had a thing where my phone stopped working and I couldn't make phone calls, and my work ground to a halt. And I needed that dealt with. So, so sometimes if I really need something resolved because it's preventing me being able to function in the way I need to function, that is the third factor.
Companies get what they promote, and what they promote is yell at them on Twitter. So they're going to get more of that. Hello, Internet. Today's an exciting day because there is a new sponsor for the show. Eero is what lets you never think about Wi-Fi again. If you live in a house of almost any size, you know the places where you have bad Wi-Fi. You have done the thing where you're on your laptop or you're on your iPad and you need something to download or upload quickly, so you go to a different physical location in the house to get into the good spot. With Eero, that will never happen again. The Wi-Fi in your house and in my apartment is pretty terrible because you're using just a single router to try to deliver Wi-Fi to the entire house. But guess what? Wi-Fi doesn't go through walls very well. It doubly doesn't go through walls very well if there's a lot of metal in those walls. It's like using one light bulb in your house to try to light all of the rooms. So what you need instead is a distributed system. Eero allows you to install the same kinds of fancy pants distributed systems that giant companies use to keep their entire buildings connected. But it's simple, it's easy, and it's way cheaper than those solutions. So when you get Eero, you connect it to where the internet comes in your house, and then you distribute their beacons throughout your home in the places where the Wi-Fi is weaker. And Eero automatically just builds a mesh network throughout your entire house. So everywhere you connect, the speed is just as good as the good spots. There are no more good spots. They're all good spots. I've got to say, I cannot wait to get my hands on an Eero. There is one coming. There should be one in my hands right now. But guess what? I don't have one in my hands. Instead, I have this. You hear that? That's the not at home to receive delivery slip. I really want my Eero. And the reason is, in my tiny London apartment, there is nothing but a gigantic slab of metal between where the internet comes in the house and where I'm recording this podcast right now. It's hugely frustrating. And I want that Eero Internet Bucket Brigade as quickly as possible so that I don't have to put up with the flaky Wi-Fi anymore. I know lots of people who use Eeros. Everybody raves about them. I can't wait to try them out. And if you've been thinking about getting an Eero at all, now is the time to do it. Show them the Hello Internet love. The Eero setup process is simple and easy, and one of the other most important things is that whatever router you're using, when was the last time you updated the security on it? Yeah, that's right, nevers. Because Eero is built for the modern world and modern internets, it gets pushed software security updates so that your home network is not vulnerable to cyber attacks. And these updates will not only just give you the latest security, but also the newest features. And you can do things like check out how your network is doing from their app at any moment, or easily create and share a network in your house just for guests. Okay, already, you're saying, how do I get my hands on an Eero? What is the promo code? Okay, so go to Eero.com, E-E-R-O. And if you're in the United States or Canada, you can get free overnight shipping by entering the promo code Hello Internet at checkout. So visit EERO.com, that's Eero.com, and get free overnight shipping in the US or Canada by entering code Hello Internet. That gets you better Wi-Fi faster and lets Eero know that you came from our show. Thanks to Eero for making Wi-Fi better, and thanks to Eero for supporting the show.
I just wanted to bring up something about the Adpocalypse Grey, which is a subject that I find quite tiresome and I actually really don't enjoy talking about on the podcast. But it does seem to be an important part of our lives, and we have a reputation for talking about it now. So,
well, yeah, and also I find revisiting this topic personally funny, because I think one of the very first times we ever mentioned it, my opinion was like, oh, this is going to blow over and we'll never hear about this again, right? Very shortly. Yeah. And then YouTube did everything within their power to make sure that this was going to be an eternal problem. And so here we are.
You're right about that. So there's been some recent developments in the last few days, some on both sides of the debate, that I thought were worth just marking. Mm-hmm. One is, it seems to be almost cyclical that the Times newspaper in London, owned by Rupert Murdoch, owned by News Corporation, that wants advertising money to be in papers and not on YouTube, and have found success in this tactic of pointing out ads are being delivered on inappropriate content. Mm-hmm. They have done their next big wave this week. They found a new one. It was terrorism before. Mm-hmm. It was, can you believe that company, that Coca-Cola is being advertised on a story about terrorism. Now they've gone to exploitation and inappropriate images of children.
Oh, just like we were saying last week. Safety of children. That gets you everything in the world.
So that's the new one that they're really ramping up, and they're doing front page stories and special investigations about. And the exact same cycle has happened, and that is all the companies that are now, fleeing and saying interestingly, they're always saying we're suspending our advertising until this is resolved.
Right.
And this has made me realize there were some things about this that you were right about, and some things that you were slightly wrong about. One is, you said at the time that this is just like a temporary thing and the companies will go away and then ultimately come back, the advertising companies, because they have to advertise here, because if they don't, they die. Mm-hmm. And you're right about that, because they're always using words like, we're suspending advertising until this is fixed. But the other thing is, this issue isn't going away, and I can see this is going to be an issue for years to come. This is just going to be something that just gets wheeled out all the time until the newspapers are gone, maybe.
Yeah.
So it's rather exasperating. But I did notice it was different this time in a way that you kind of have foreshadowed and spoken about in the past, and that is, the companies aren't saying, that's it, we're taking your advertising away forever. Mm-hmm. They're a bit more careful in their wording, and they say, we're suspending advertising. So, and what does that mean?
Yeah.
Does that mean,
The impression that I have gotten from discussing things with people is that a lot of this ends up becoming a situation where money is simply building up behind a dam, and then when it looks like it's all clear, right, the floodgates are opened again, so that let's put it this way, like the amount of money that a company has allocated to spend on YouTube in a quarter is still maintained at a consistent rate, even if the individual weeks or month are not at a consistent rate. That's the impression that I get is largely what's happening.
So one of the things that I like newspapers, obviously, and I used to work in newspapers. But one of the things that has always frustrated me about this is kind of the hypocrisy, because I think a lot of newspapers do a lot of bad things too, and companies advertise in newspapers. And I've always thought, well, hang on, like, your people in glass houses here are throwing a lot of stones. And there was a story that caught my eye last week that has opened my eye to something else I didn't know was going on. And just to give you a bit of context, the Daily Mail newspaper in the UK, which a lot of people are familiar with and isn't regarded very highly for various reasons, for its sort of political stances, had this front page promotion thing where people could take a coupon from that day's paper to the newsagents in London called Paper Chase, and could get a free roll of wrapping paper for their Christmas presents. Pretty typical kind of, newspaper promotion. Take your coupon from the paper, get your wrapping paper. And it turns out there's this organisation that I wasn't quite familiar with called Stop Funding Hate. And they're kind of the adpocalypse version of the adpocalypse, except for newspapers. And whenever companies advertise with newspapers they don't like, that are on their list of "we don't like you," they then go to the mattresses and give a hard time to the advertisers about that. And Stop Funding Hate engineered this campaign against Paper Chase for being in bed with the Daily Mail that was so venomous that Paper Chase made a public statement apologising for this promotion and have vowed to never advertise or do a promotion with the Daily Mail again. And Stop Funding Hate apparently have done this with various companies, including our good friends Lego, who have been shamed into not advertising with various newspapers because of this campaign. So it's the thing happening in the opposite direction. And it's actually something that I've kind of spoken about before when I said, when we see advertisements on free-booted videos on Facebook, we should shame the advertisers. Don't take on Facebook. Facebook don't care. Go to the advertiser and say, "Hey, Pepsi, do you know that your videos are running against all this stolen content?" That's exactly what Stop Funding Hate are doing. So the battle is actually happening in both directions.
What do you think of this?
Do you know what? I'm kind of a bit uneasy with it both ways.
Yeah, I mean
I think it's hypocritical for me to say that Stop Funding Hate are doing the wrong thing, except that the adpocalypse people, like saying YouTube is bad, the people they actually have the problems with are the content creators, the people who are uploading the bad stuff. Whereas when you have a campaign against a newspaper, the newspaper is deciding what goes in its paper. It's not like the Daily Mail can say, "Hey, we can't control what our journalists write. Sorry that our columnist wrote a really racist column, but we can't control it. We're just a platform." The newspaper does have total editorial control over what appears in its pages. And therefore, when someone takes them to task for it, I think there's an extra level of accountability that YouTube don't necessarily have. But I've said in the past that I do think YouTube does have to have some accountability for what appears on the site as well. So for that reason, I'm kind of, I don't know what to think about this. I'm a bit stuck in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, my initial reaction is, of course, I think it's funny because it's the newspapers getting what they're giving, right? Like you're dishing out a thing and it's like, well. Look who comes back around. And I do agree with you that the newspapers have a level of control that YouTube could only dream of. Right? That is just fundamentally impossible on the YouTube platform. But I don't know, like with all of this stuff, I feel, ever since we talked about it a long time ago, we initially started having conversations about like mob justice on the internet. There is something like I feel like I am permanently and forever uneasy about any kind of mob justice on the internet in a way that I didn't used to be, several years ago. And any of this kind of stuff where, like, even if I would agree with the mob justice, perhaps especially if I would agree with the mob justice, it feels like you should be really cautious about that kind of thing, right? Where and this feels like a similar thing, like you're trying to bully and shame an organization into not supporting a thing, and it's like I know that we can get all worthy about what the reasons for doing that are, but I don't know how to put this, but
I feel what you're saying though. It's like this is the thin end of the wedge for online vigilantes. Like
yeah,
if we start doing this all the time, where does it stop?
I guess what I'm trying to think about here is it's a little bit like my feeling about politics, where we don't really talk about politics on the show, and part of the reason is because my personal feeling is like, if we're not talking about the meta issues, like if we're not talking about the voting system, right, or we're not talking about campaign finance, right, like then we're getting like dragged down into the details of things, but we're never addressing the root cause of problems. And there's something about internet vigilantism that is more and more in my mind falling into a kind of like, I think this is a fundamental problem in a way, but I don't know. I'm not even sure I can say it that harshly or that clearly, but it is just a thing that I find myself very, very cautious about. And it feels like we need a better and more responsible solution than a kind of internet bullying campaign, even if it's for something that we agree with. Like for the same reason that in a society we have laws. No matter how much evidence you have like against a murderer, like we still put a murderer on trial because we have to go through the process. And there's something, it feels like we need some kind of process on the internet that can handle stuff instead of this sort of like, let's all get riled up about a thing. Like even the name of this campaign, right? Stop Funding Hate, right? Is like, that name is designed to stop any conversation about what this organization is doing.
Yeah.
If you're not with the Stop Funding Hate organization, are you for funding hate? Right? It's like, right. No, of course not. I think it's funny when you first show it to me, but I'm finding more and more my brain has this like antibody reaction to anything that starts looking like, let's gang up on a thing online and force them to do what we want. Like I find myself getting more and more cautious about that kind of behavior on the internet in any way.
There's also this slightly weird dynamic where there's always this third party.
Yeah.
So it's like Paper Chase, the newsagents, are also like copping it in the neck. And you could say, well, they deserve it because they're giving their money to the Daily Mail and they know what the Daily Mail's like.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like this indirect argument. It's like these people have an issue with the Daily Mail and they're like taking hostages and hurting other people to try and damage the Daily Mail. And there are all these sort of other parties who are kind of copping it in the neck as a result. And it feels like, I don't know, it feels a bit icky.
When there is this third party interaction, it always gets more complicated. And again, I think the internet version of this is like, they don't go after the person, like they go after the platform that the person is on. And well, they go after the money, don't they? Yeah.
And it's always about going after the money supply, the career, your livelihood.
Yeah, that is an excellent point. I feel like we do, Brady, you're always the master of words here, but I do feel like we need a term for this idea about going after somebody's livelihood on the internet. Like there are so many different versions of this that is like, it's a concept that happens over and over again of like trying to get someone removed from Patreon or trying to get someone fired from their job or whatever. Like this is a thing that happens all the time, of this idea of like, you're going after somebody's livelihood wherever that livelihood is. And again, I always just feel really cautious about that. And I think you're right. There is something that feels wrong about when it's a third party interaction. It feels like you're not engaging directly. You're engaging in a sneaky way instead of engaging head on with the thing that you don't like.
I sometimes worry about the apocalypse, and I think if all the advertisers pull off the platform and YouTube collapses and stuff, it could be bad for people like you and I. But then this deep calm comes over me when I realize that if a company completely stops advertising on Google and YouTube, another company will come in to fill the void, and that's what keeps it going. Like if Coca-Cola said, "All right, we're not advertising on YouTube anymore," Pepsi would think, "Brilliant,
Yeah.
we will."
Yeah, exactly.
So there is a hope that kind of market force, as long as YouTube aren't a really bad company and really are doing bad stuff, which I don't think they are, then I'm quite comfortable with this kind of toing and froing, and I kind of hope it just doesn't hurt people too much. It certainly has created an absolute debacle on the content flagging stuff, which we've talked about recently. So it is hurting us regardless.
And while I've said before that I think YouTube is in a strong enough market position that they don't have to do a lot of this, I do worry about the future of YouTube a little bit, simply because I feel like they are beginning to cross an annoyance line with a large enough number of creators that I think if I was in charge of YouTube, that would be a thing I would just... Is it a threat today? Maybe not, but it's a thing I would just have my eye on. That it as a creator who talks to other creators, it really feels like everybody is super annoyed with the flagging and the way the whole system works. And
we're still just the Mickey Mouse of the system, though, Gray. It's not like Sony and all those people who are uploading music videos to YouTube are upset. And as long as YouTube have got them sweet,
I know what you're saying, but I think if I was trying to do a startup to compete with YouTube, which I think might be a fundamentally impossible thing to do, I think YouTube might have a pretty secure hold on the natural monopoly of video. But let's say I was tasked to do it, right? And you had like $1 billion, and it's like, okay, make a startup to compete with YouTube. I wouldn't go after the big companies like what's the music company, Vivo and Sony and all this other stuff, and the millions of hours of late night TV that's on YouTube. I would go after trying to sway the creators, because I think if you can sway the creators, then those big companies will just double post their material right on YouTube and whatever the YouTube competitor is. YouTube, I love you guys. I'm not competing with you. I don't have a secret startup in the works. Venture capitalists, though, if you're looking for someone to work with, give me a call. YouTube, don't listen to that. But anyway, but I do think that that's the vulnerable point. If there is a vulnerable point, it's people who are individual or small creators who have loyal audiences, whereas trying to convince Sony to upload onto a competing channel is a hopeless cause, right? They're just going to make a business decision, and the only question is, can you get your competitor big enough that it makes sense for those channels to start double posting? And
this is where I think Facebook are missing a trick. Like that, by not opening things up to smaller operations like people like us. Like, this is the time to strike. Because if Facebook said now, look, we'll share half the revenue with you, let's do it, I think they'd get a lot of people. And then if they started pulling all those people across, then they could start trying to get the big guns. But they're just like they're so close-minded, Facebook. They're so selfish. Yeah,
I kind of wonder what Facebook's up to. I mean, I don't want to give Facebook any tips here on how to defeat YouTube, because I really don't like Facebook. But nonetheless, I am constantly surprised at the decisions they make with online video, and it feels like you guys are so close. Like you could have this if you just changed a few things, and they don't, and I don't understand why. And I just, because I like to believe in a somewhat rational world, I feel like they must be up to something that we can't see, or there must be some reason why they don't do revenue sharing with creators. But I don't understand it, and it seems like it would be the most obvious thing to do if you were in charge of Facebook.
Should we end with a paper cut?
Yeah, let's round out with a paper cut.
This is a special paper cut, because this is Brady's paper cut meets Sports Ball Corner.
Oh God, what happens when corners cross with each other?
We got,
What do we get? Do you get a square then, I guess, if we have two corners crossing?
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah. I want to send you a picture, or I'll send you a few pictures. And these pictures have been taken during post-game celebrations, because the baseball season, the MLB baseball season, recently ended. So we had lots of happy baseballers in the changing rooms celebrating wonderful victories.
Okay, I'm looking.
We've got players in the changing rooms, bottles of champagne being shaken, corks being popped, champagne being sprayed everywhere, as is the custom celebration at the end of a sporting triumph. Do you have any initial thoughts?
Well, they're all wearing ski masks, so it must be some pretty violent champagne spraying there.
This is the development in the last few years that I am paper cut by. Professional athletes, in these spontaneous moments of happiness, for years they've been pulling out the T-shirts that were pre-made for them winning, congratulations on winning, which are obviously made weeks before they won.
Well, yeah.
But then they've also brought a bunch of sometimes customized swimming goggles and ski masks to put on their faces before they start spraying the champagne so they can protect their eyes. This seems like the least spontaneous and least rugged, cool sports thing you could do. And it makes them seem like a bunch of wusses.
I feel like there's a real theme here in your complaints as of late, Brady. But yes, it's like you have to have your Dewey Beats Truman T-shirts all set and ready to go. Of course, have to have them ready and printed. But the goggles. The goggles do make them look like a bunch of wusses. I'm not gonna lie.
Silly. And it just ruins the moment for me. Saying it no longer seems like this moment where we were just so happy we couldn't control ourselves. It's like, okay, everyone, put on your goggles for safety, and now we will have the fun.
Yeah, these are fun approved goggles. I like that.
It's more health and safety gone mad. I'm sure someone will tell me some story about a champagne cork that ruined a baseballer's career, or how the acidity of champagne can ruin your vision or something. But hey, if spraying champagne and celebrating at the end of the game is unsafe, then just don't do it. But don't all start putting goggles on, because you look silly.
Yeah, if it's dangerous, you should come up with a new tradition. Yeah. I don't think the champagne is possibly dangerous, except for the exploding cork, if you don't know how to handle a champagne bottle. But yeah, this looks dumb. I'm gonna give it a thumbs down.
Do not approve of this. And I'm sure now everyone's going to jump on Reddit like they did about the astronauts and say, hey, they've got these multi-million-dollar contracts and they've got to protect their eyes. But come on,
Brady, why are you against fun? That's what I'm getting. All the complaints, Brady. You're against fun.
Just so you know, I'm not against the champagne. I love the champagne at the end of the sport. I just think putting these goggles on, not only is it like health and safety gone mad, it makes the whole thing look unnatural and premeditated and not like a celebration and just something they all knew they were going to have to do for the cameras later.
I wonder if in 10 years they'll be having safety rain jackets for the champagne as well. Like, if you would rewound time 10 years ago and ask someone, do you think people will have to put on goggles before they open champagne? No one would have said yes, right? That would have seemed ridiculous. And the idea now of some kind of safety raincoat for your champagne seems ridiculous, but maybe in 10 years, that's what they'll be doing as well. They'll have special coverings for themselves so they don't get hurt by the champagne.
Hey, just so that we don't end on me being anti-fun, can I bring up one other interesting story I saw a few weeks ago that touches on various topics here? One being like insurance and safety and that, and the other being Twitter, which we've talked about a lot today. There was a news story a little while ago where a famous soccer player from England was on holiday with his wife, and I don't know what they were doing. They were skiing or something. And he tweeted or Instagrammed or whatever he did saying, hey, having a good time, what he was up to. And because he did that, thieves knew that he wasn't in his lovely mansion in England, cleaned out the place, took all his stuff, took thousands and thousands of pounds worth of nice stuff. And his insurance company wouldn't pay because they said tweeting that he was on holiday was a security breach that voided his insurance policy. And there's this whole debate going on now about whether or not if you tweet that you're away from your house and your house gets robbed, whether you should be insured. And I want to know what you think of that.
I agree with the insurance company on this one. And this is actually a moment to answer a question that a bunch of people have asked, which is, you remember for a while I had the gray health bot that was tweeting out my weight every day.
Yep.
I stopped that in no small part because I realized after I was traveling that thing was essentially an indicator of if I was traveling or if I was not traveling, right? Because I'm not bringing my internet connected scale with me wherever I go, and even if I was bringing it, I would be in a different time zone, and the weight measurements would go up at a different time, and I felt uncomfortable with having a very clear indicator on the internet about when I was or was not home. So I stopped that. I stopped doing that, and I feel like I got to go with the insurance company on this one. Yeah, if you're tweeting about not being home, I can see that's definitely like an invitation to burgle a house in a way.
Difficult situation though, isn't it? It's an unfortunate situation where, people who like sharing their adventures and stuff can't do it.
Okay, let's take the internet out of this. Do you think so Brady, the next time you go on vacation, you pack up all your things, you're going to be really diligent on Twitter, you're not going to say anything, but you put a big sign in the front yard that says, "We are not home," and you only take it down when you return. How do you feel about that?
Well, there's a different thing going on there. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Oh, I know it's a different thing going on there. This is why I feel like this is a patented Brady analogy, right? Like this is like we've subtly shifted the ground here. But I'm curious if you had done such a thing and you got robbed and the insurance company said you put a "please rob me" sign in front of your house. No, we're not going to cover it.
No. You've changed the analogy now. You've said "please rob me" sign is different to "I'm not home."
Right. Okay.
I think insurance companies should cover you for normal behavior, and it is normal behavior to go on a holiday and share pictures while you're on holiday. And like, how far do we have to take this? You're saying we have to create like all these deceptions. Like next they're going to say you have to start pre-programming Facebook posts of photos of you at home that automatically upload every 2 or 3 days when you're on holiday as an extra layer of protection.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
How far is this going to go? How much onus is on us? Like if you left a sign at the front saying "my house is unlocked, you are free to come and take stuff," okay, the insurance company could probably say, "Well, hang on."
Yeah, then it's not even burglary.
Yeah, but posting a picture, like it's not like the house wasn't locked. Like you are allowed to be not home and go and do things. I mean, this happens to footballers sometimes when they're playing games overseas, like they're playing a big famous game. Like there was one footballer who was playing something like a Champions League final or something over in Europe, and because it was such a big game, they knew his family would all be going to watch, and he got robbed while he was playing in that game because everyone knew everyone associated with him was going to be away from the house. So I mean, I don't know. I think
that's interesting. I feel like that puts a real wrinkle in my thoughts there, that comparison, because I agree the insurance should cover it if he's at work, right? But how is that different if his work happens to be going to a sports game that's out of town, right? Is that any different from posting on Twitter his family vacation photos? I would have a very hard time articulating why I feel like that's different, and so maybe you're finding a little bit of there's a wrinkle here that I feel like I've cast doubt on my certainty from before. Interesting.
It is an interesting dilemma.
Do you tweet, though, while you're away?
Yeah. I sometimes do.
It's interesting.
Not always. But yeah, I do.
I feel very aware of it.
I mean, you're unusually...
Go ahead, Brady. You can say whatever word is popping into your head. I know there's some word.
I would describe you as a worrier. You are a person who finds things to worry about. So I can imagine when you're traveling, you would see the worry.
There is a side effect here that often when I'm traveling, I have a very hard time keeping up with even just the normal things in life. Like I'm usually traveling for a very clear purpose, and so I don't want to do a bunch of other stuff. So it is much more easy than normal to not tweet when I'm traveling. But
I'm the opposite. I find I suddenly have all this spare time, and I get angry at myself for tweeting too much. I'm sitting, by the beach. And, I'm in the shade because I don't like being out in too much direct sun. And I've been sitting there for like 2 hours and I'm thinking, bit bored. Might tweet.
Once again, I find that so interesting. Our completely opposite experiences. Yeah, I feel like I am very monomaniacal when I'm traveling, and so yeah, I don't tweet very much, but when I do, I am always aware of tweeting stuff, and I often, I don't know, but not even sure. I'm not even sure I should say it exactly, but I do often really time shift when I'm traveling when the actual tweet goes up.
Yeah.
Like I think I have never tweeted about being at a place when I'm at the place. Right? Like it is always later in time than it would be. So I'm also just aware of like moving things around even when I am tweeting and I'm on a trip. But yeah, I might be a bit of a special case in that one. But for sure, an insurance company, no matter what, will always be trying to find a way to not pay on the policy. Yeah, that's a microphone, Mr. Chompers. That's how Uncle Gray does his podcasts. Okay, now no chomping the microphone. Chomp your bone.